Fox News, ladies and gentlemen, FBI arrests 4 alleged members of radical pro-Palestinian group accused of plotting New Year's Eve bombings. Individuals self-identified as members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front. So the quick gist here is they were planning to use IEDs, according to the FBI, on New Year's Eve. And apparently their motivation is anti-imperialism. It's not really about pro-Palestine. They are just general leftists who think that the United States is a colonizing force and they want to decolonize. And for this, they wanted to blow people up, according to the FBI. So I can't say that I'm surprised, but what I am, again, not surprised, I guess I'll add this, is that it's not being framed as leftist when it clearly is. The quote, free Palestine, free Hawaii, free Puerto Rico, freeing the world from American imperialism. This is not a right-wing position. And I'm using right-wing in the way the left uses it. When they say that the right is nationalistic authoritarian. Okay, this is the opposite of that. It's anarcho-tyrannical, anti-American. It is clearly aligned with leftist, anti-colonial, decolonized, whatever. But I guarantee you they're going to put it under right-wing, anti-government extremists. And they're not going to classify it as leftist.
I can't imagine. I mean, I don't think you're wrong, but I can't imagine how you can twist yourself into saying that it's right wing. To this point, like it's a good thing that Donald Trump has actually started focusing on homegrown terror from the left. This plot right here, obviously, was one of the things one of the reasons why the DOJ should be focusing on this stuff. But you can go back and look the past year at how many leftist attacks on whether they be individuals or businesses or what have you, how much violence they're actually carrying out in the United States. And to think that they're not planning more, considering how they've been essentially marginalized politically, the left does not have the power that it used to. They've been losing over and over and over. And this is how they lash out. So it's good that the DOJ is doing this stuff, and I just want to see more.
Well, some advice to all you anti-imperialists out there. I'm not the biggest fan of what I think is the least worst global system we've ever had. We haven't had a world war in 80 years. That's really cool. If you want to end empire, you got to replace it with something better. Don't just try and destroy what we got. You're going to prison if you do that, and you're going to be seen as a villain. You got to think bigger, make better.
They're going to say they want to replace it with communism or some kind of socialism. That's the goal.
Oh, shall we talk about Animal Farm, the movie?
I really hate what I'm hearing.
I saw you tweet about it that they're
we'll get into that in a second.
So
but
ultimately, well, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking is like these foolish radicals that want to blow things up and they think that that's the step forward. You just got I don't know how to wake them up exactly. But if you're a kid, if you're listening now, don't do that path. Build better things because we can improve on this imperial system and probably we might even be able to decolonize and de-imperialize the world in a better way for everybody. But that's by creating new things.
I just think is bad.
I think the political violence is going to keep getting worse, and it's not just this like left-right divide, these principal left-right factions, but the internet is creating pockets of tons of different factions. I mean, you only really need 100 wackaloons of any crazy ideology to get political violence to a great degree. This is 4 people. You've got the Zizians, you've got 764. You don't need a left versus right. You've just got wackaloon groups popping up all over the place. That's what's got me worried about the political violence moving forward to next year.
But aren't we playing into this? I mean, we're calling this left or this right, or they're going to say, we're saying it's left. They're going to try to make it right. I mean, when are we going to get to the place where we're back to just these are some crazy people that are against America? I mean, I am very concerned actually because we're all doing it. I mean, I know we talk about how Charlie Kirk was talked about. I mean, I think about this a lot, but we're all carrying hatred for the other side. We're, if you're a conservative, you're terrified of communism in this country, and it's. I mean, when they say, "Oh, there's a civil war," I mean, we are. I mean, I don't know how a civil war would ever happen with the laziest society the world's ever seen. I mean, that's
only 3% of Americans fought in the revolution,
right? But we are all playing this, and I think that's part of, like, not to go back to the Trump story, but it's what's bothering us is so many of us are going back for the holidays to visit with our families, and we're going to try and like really finally get our liberal brothers, sisters, relatives to understand, look how much good is happening here, and a line like that by Trump doesn't help.
Maybe,
but I mean, we have to, if we do not figure out how to reach across the aisle somehow, we keep calling each other names. It does feel like it's coming one direction, but here we are. Left, is it right? It's a bunch of pro-Palestinians that want to kill Americans for, no reasonable reason.
But I would posit that there actually is an underlying ideology to what's going on here, because leftism fundamentally is deconstructionist. They want to take apart what brings order to the world, these sorts of things. That's where the ideas of decolonization come out. That's why they specifically harp on about Hawaii, harp on about Puerto Rico. So what's happening here is wise from the FBI to keep an eye on these sorts of groups, because fundamentally they do want to take apart what is the United States. And leftism in its natural conclusion is going to result in things like this, because once they feel like they can't achieve means, Oran McIntyre, me and Phil were talking about his interview with it was Amy Aiden Paladin, where people with a strong outgroup preference are never going to be satisfied with whoever's in office. They're going to continue to lash out because they're in constant rebellion. So what you're seeing with these people here, this is leftism at its natural conclusion. These are people that are always in a constant rebellion, and no sort of bone that we can throw to them will ever fully satiate them.
It sounds like you're talking about Marxism.
When you bring up decolonization, you have to talk about Franz Fanon, the guy that wrote this book called The Wretched of the Earth. And in the book, it specifically says that decolonization is an inherently violent process.
Yes.
Right? You don't get to have a peaceful change of the guard when you're talking about decolonization. When you're talking about decolonization, you're not talking about just voting in the people that you like. There's always violence associated with it. And so if you've got a group that's saying we want to decolonize, we want to decolonize Hawaii, we want to decolonize, we stand for decolonization of Palestine or what have you. These people aren't looking for a peaceful solution. These people are not going to be debated. These people are violent by their nature. That's why they're attracted to books like The Wretched of the Earth by Franz Fanon. They're attracted to ideologies like the decolonized whatever ideology. This stuff is all leftist violence that you can't reason with. It's inherently violent. You have to put these people in jail.
I want to put it like this, because you're saying we keep pointing the finger at each other.
Yeah.
That's why the challenge that we have is the left-right distinction doesn't make any sense, and it's a point we've talked about quite a bit. Right doesn't mean lower taxes. It doesn't mean go to church. To every conservative, I'm a liberal. To every liberal, because liberal doesn't even mean liberal, I'm a conservative or far right.
Right.
So what we're talking about when we say left is there is an ideological zealotry that exists specifically in a group of people. And the right, when we talk about the right, it's actually just what the core of America has been for the past 30 years. So how we call out those who dance on the grave of Charlie Kirk, the right doesn't really have that. Certainly there are some people that they exist, and you're going to have fringe wackos. So you make this point saying, when are we going to go back to just saying that these are extremists? That is what the right is. On the right, almost everybody is always saying violence is wrong, and sometimes there's wackos. The quote-unquote left is largely just a bunch of wackos. So it's fair to say these are just all extremists, but there is a uniqueness to what the left has harbored, what the Democrats are harboring, and the ideas they espouse when they align themselves with, there's thousands upon thousands of videos of people celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, but I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, so I come from like the crystal cathedral of liberalism, right? It doesn't, that Aspen, Berkeley, and so what I can say is this: I'll go home, I'm going to have arguments with friends and family because they all have a different perspective than I do. But what I will not hear is that they believe in decolonization. And then this is what I struggle with is when we say left, but I agree that there's this globalist, authoritarian, communist, whatever you want to take it, rush our borders, destroy, water down our society, make us demand that the National Guard come in and take away our rights because we can't handle ourselves and we vote in the nanny state. But what I think is difficult about this time is that I really think that it's more like they're brainwashed or that they're hypnotized, right? They don't actually know what they're fighting for. When we say left, sure, if you're talking about whoever's in charge, whoever the they is, but the people that are watching CNN, MSNBC, they don't actually know what they're a part of. And if they did, if you could wake them up, I think they'd be with us. I think they'd be in the right that you're talking about. I was one.
Agreed. Like there are many people who were formerly of TDS. And this is the issue. There is a left. And then there are people who have aligned themselves ignorantly, and I don't mean that derisively, but ignorantly with these people. And I have these conversations typically with these boomers who are voting Democrat.
Yeah.
And then I mention one Democrat policy, and they say I'm lying. I made it up. There's no way.
Right.
Do you think that there should be abortion up to the point of birth? They go, no one's doing that. I'm like, let me pull up a list for you of all the Democrats. They don't believe it. They won't listen. And so when you have fringe
You're making
leftists,
my point. You're exactly where I'm
and so the point is this.
Yeah.
When we point out that there are fringe leftists who are extremists, standing in front of them are a bunch of doofy boomers who are protecting them and voting in their policies, we have a problem. But it's the banality of evil. Just because they're ignorant doesn't mean they're excused for what they're doing.
Where they're hypnotized. It's really like trying to crack someone out of a zombie trance.
Yeah.
Still got to put them in jail.
But I agree. But if we're going to get through to people that we care about, then we're going to have to, understand how they think, and they are not thinking as like they're not carrying strong leftist values. To your point, when you lay them out to them, they're like, "No, that's not true. Oh, that's not true. No, that's propaganda. That's what the Trumpers say." They really don't get that. That's what the driving force of their, of what they're voting for is. So somehow, if we keep calling them and labeling them with this ideology that they don't even actually adhere to, I don't think we're going to win this game. There's got to be a better way to get to the people and say, you're being led by people you would not agree with if you could wake up. It's semantics in a way.
I think you're underestimating exactly how pervasive this ideology is to young people. If you go to colleges, you have to take some kind of humanities courses to graduate, and the humanities are where this stuff is absolutely prevalent, right? It is everywhere. The idea that the right is imperialist and based on evil, that is pervasive throughout all of the colleges. It's not just a handful of colleges, and it's not just a handful of classes. There was a time a couple of years back where there was an argument that was coming that you heard actual mathematicians making the argument that sometimes 2 + 2 = 5. This kind of ideology is seeping out of the humanities. It's all over the English classes. It's getting into STEM and stuff like that. So I understand your point, and I do think there is a bit of truth to it, because it's not something that everybody is really committed to. But I do think there are a lot of young people that really believe that the West is overall evil. They believe the things they've heard in their humanities classes, their women's studies classes, anything in the humanities really. But it's basically saying that the West is evil, and if you ascribe to anything that the West does, you're saying that you accept evil. And I think that it's important that we notice that this is not just a very fringe right. It's a lot of people that really have moved out of the colleges and moved into broader society.
I think you're pointing out a generational issue, which is I see it as dealing with my parents, my brother, sister, the kids, I went to school with. They're not quite, but what you are talking about, you're right. I am sort of blind to. I do see what they're teaching in college, and the young people are coming out much more radicalized against.
I'm probably closer to your age than anybody else
here.
Yeah,
but it's a good point. I'm not saying you're not. I think it is a generational issue.
If these people truly, a bunch of them are hypnotized, and you fall into, like Phil, to respond to you, and you fall into saying, I think you really believe what you're saying. In their hypnotic state, you're like, no, that's really who you are. That's going to mean you lose to them and you lose to the hypnotist. You have to shatter through that.
Well, it's not as simple as just, having a conversation or two, right? Like the people that believe that the West has colonized the world and has oppressed the entire world. You're not going to sit them down and show them the Trump video where he says no, there were the Very Fine People hoax, and have someone say, oh, well, I didn't know that he said that. Now I'm going to change everything. These people have this ideology ingrained in them, and they have for 8, whatever years that they're in college. Their post-grad studies, like, it's all over the place. So it's not just the situation of, hey, we got to talk to our family members, not saying that doesn't work or that's not important. It's just that this is something that it's a societal problem that we have right now. And we can't just say, oh, well, if we just sit down and talk to people, they'll change their opinion. You're going to have to end up putting the violent people in jail, take them out of society because they're looking to destroy society.
Yeah, I mean, because people we were going on to these, to Phil's point, the college campuses are where a lot of this is occurring. We went to the college campuses and they shot us for our trouble. So, I mean, it's like at a certain point when you're dealing with people who fundamentally do not accept the pretense of debate, then we have to believe them when they say these things. We have to accept their presupposition that they just simply don't believe in debate anymore.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.